Greetings once again from Rescue Shuttle Control. You've successfully lifted off the planet and are now safely in space. And during our last couple sessions, we've been concentrating on the steps necessary to get your shuttle on course to safety. And in previous sessions, we completed wiring up your autopilot controller. We maxed out most of the pins available on our Hero controller, and we've wired up things that will allow us to make use of not only the OLED display, but also the rotary encoder, the keypad, the dip switches, and LED indicator lights. So we have, during our sessions up to now, one by one been working out the logic and the coding necessary to activate those various functions. Last time, we worked through the bitmaps and logic necessary to display information on our OLED display. And today we're going to shift our attention to the logic necessary to interpret input coming from our keypad. So without further ado, let's go ahead and have a look at the new code that we'll be adding to what we've been developing so far. Our code's getting pretty large now. We're going to have more bitmaps and more memory use. We're going to be up over 70% of our available memory use by the time we're done today. But by the end of today's session, we should be able to verify the correct functioning of our keypad and our LED landing light indicator. So let's have a look and see what we've got. In our code, we've acknowledged the fact that we're now adding the keypad to the functions that we're going to support. And so we've included the keypad library. So you'll be able to go back and review from our previous sessions what that all entails, but we'll see how that works very shortly. We've got the same macros defined, giving us pin numbers. We aren't yet ready to use the rotary encoder, but we do have our dip switches and our output landing light pin indicated, as we verified previously with the wiring that we did on our breadboard in Hero. Since we're using the keypad, in addition to defining an object that defines our U8G panel, we also now, as before, are defining a keypad object. So you can see here that we've chosen our name, My Awesome Keypad, and you can name it whatever you like, as long as you're consistent throughout your code. Scrolling down, you can see some familiar constructions from some of our previous sessions. You'll see here that we've defined the rows and columns that identify the buttons on our keypad by row and column. And we've got a set of column pins and row pins that correspond, hopefully, to the way that they're connected to our Hero controller. These numbers may have changed from our previous example because we have had to rearrange some of the wiring in order to accommodate all the different functions that we're using in this project. We'll verify in a little while that these numbers are correctly identified, with the rows being the pins 10 through 13 and the columns being the pins 6 through 9. The ordering of those corresponding to the direction in which we're increasing in rows and columns. Your particular setup may vary depending upon how you've chosen to orient your keypad, but this example will check and make sure that we've done it correctly. Here are the characters that we're associating with the rows and columns on our keypad, which should be familiar to you from our previous example. Next in our code is the long block of saved bitmap constant data, and that hasn't changed except that we've got more bitmaps than we had before. I think we now have maybe 9 different bitmaps that will be used for displaying status information. You can certainly cut and paste those, so there's no need to worry too much about them. But we'll scroll down through all of that bitmap data that's taking up quite a bit of our available memory and get to the actual operative parts of our code. So here we are with our setup routine, which should be familiar to us. We'll go ahead as before and activate the serial monitor because that's going to give us a little bit of feedback that we can use to debug our code and make sure that it's working as desired. We have our pin mode calls. The pin mode calls, as before, are going to identify our input pins from the dip switch and our output pin for our landing light indicator. The rest of the setup here is very familiar to us. And so we can go ahead now and look at what's new and different in our loop function and the supporting custom functions that might be called from loop. You'll see here that we've got a new variable that you might recall from our earlier sessions, custom key. Custom key will be set to a value that is looking for any key presses that are detected on my awesome pad. So we'll be looking for key presses every time through the loop function. If custom key comes back as true, that means that a button press has been detected and we take action according to that. So one of the first things we'll do is we will print the value of the key that was returned in the serial monitor so that we can see just what's happened. Next, we're going to use digital write to turn on our landing light indicator. Obviously, we haven't landed yet, but this will provide us with a test to make sure that we are correctly activating the logic that will turn that landing light on. We'll leave the landing light on for 1 second and then turn it back off. Now, that's not the only thing that's happening in our loop function, because if you keep going down, we also have a picture loop, which means that we're also, at the same time that we're doing this logic, we're also drawing on the OLED display. And this is familiar to us. We are used to this construction by now. We have a picture loop that's refreshing the screen, making use of our custom draw function. So the next thing we'll do is we'll have a look at that draw function and see what, if anything, is different from our previous examples. So here's our draw. You can see, as before, we set a text font for the OLED display. And then we call a new function that we haven't seen before called calculate face. And the name suggests what it does. It looks at the condition of our system and it decides which one of the faces that we want to display on the OLED display. And so maybe what we ought to do, well, we can go ahead and look through what happens after this and then explore what calculate face contains. You'll notice that right after calling calculate face, we do a switch case based on the value of the variable display bitmap. You might recall that up at the top of our code, we had set display bitmap to a default value of 0. So if it's not been changed by calculate face, then case 0 will execute and the U8G panel will display the default face. That's one of the bitmaps that we have, the default face. As a matter of fact, if you look at our OLED display right now, it's showing the default face. All right, now it can have different values. Display bitmap might have a value of 1 all the way up to 10, it turns out. So in that case, we're going to execute different options here within the switch statement. And so if you scroll down, you can see that we're going to be testing various indications that you'll use during your landing sequence. Party face, looks like something good happened. Yikes face, better watch out. We have prompts to increase and decrease our throttle. And we have some status markers for checks, 1 check, 3 checks. and some throttle indicators. And finally, our 10th case is an error indication. So these are the different bitmaps that we're going to be using to communicate with the crew during the execution of our flight and landing sequence. So let's finally look down to see what calculate face does. And it's very simple, but it's some logic that we want to make sure that we understand. This logic that we're using right now is for testing purposes. It's not for the final flight, but it'll give us an indication that we've actually configured our dip switches the way we think we have. So in calculate face, the first thing we do is we call digital read on each one of our three switches, switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, which you'll remember correspond to the start of the landing sequence, the start of the landing approach, and finally the landing terminal phase. So those are our three switches, 1, 2, and 3, and digital read will tell us whether they're on, that is 1, or whether they're off, that is 0. So we get the three values of switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, and then we enter a test. The first test says if switch 1 is equal to 1, and switch 2 is equal to 0, and switch 3 is equal to 0, that would be the binary number 001. So that is a decimal number of 1. And so let's go ahead and set bitmap display to the value of 1. And correspondingly, we'll test for other combinations of the three switches. For example, the combination 0, 1, or rather 0, 1, 0, or from the left, that would also be 0, 1, 0, would correspond to the binary number 2. And so we set bitmap equal to 2. And we go all the way down here to the largest binary number that we can display with 3 bits. That would be 111 or decimal 7. And so we'll display bitmap 7. Obviously, these 7 possible combinations of the 3 switches don't allow us to go all the way up to 10. But you can change this code later on if you would like to also test and see that you're getting the expected results from the values 8, 9, and 10. We won't bother with that right now. Finally, there's the default case. If none of these conditions are true, then the switches must all be in the 0 position. And so we'll go back to the display bitmap 0, which is our default face. That's all the code. This is all we're going to add in today's session because we're trying to work through each one of these subsystems one at a time and verify that they're working before we try to put everything all together and make the big commitment to start our autopilot sequence. All right, so it's about time at this point to go through and check and see if the code that we have here corresponds and works well with what we've wired up during our last couple of sessions. So let's first check the syntax, check and make sure that our code compiles properly. So let's verify. All right, looks like everything else is fine. And we can go ahead now and upload the code and test it and see if it's functioning correctly. So let's go ahead and upload. You can see that we use 73% of program storage space. So we're really pressing our hardware here almost to its limits. We've got a little more to add when we start working with the rotary encoder. Okay, upload is done. Looks like the Hero system is stable, and we've got the display showing the default face. So let's see, maybe the first thing we ought to do is check the keypad and see if the keypad is working properly. In order to verify that it's working properly, I'm going to bring up the serial monitor window. And if this is working properly, when I press a keypad, I should get a blue light indication, and I should also get the corresponding character displayed in the serial monitor. So I'll start off by pressing the upper left-hand button, which is the 1, if we've wired this correctly. So let's press 1. I get a blue light for 1 second, and 1 shows up on this serial monitor. Let's try some more. Here's 2. Here's 3. So things seem to be looking good. If this is all correct, I should get A in the upper right-hand corner of the keypad. There we go. If I go to the lower right-hand corner of the keypad, I should get a D. If I go to the left of that, I should get a pound sign, and so on. So that has verified what we hoped, and that is that we've correctly configured the columns and rows of our keypad to correspond to the characters we want to send. We've also verified the logic and the wiring that gives our landing light indication, because we're getting the blue light as indicated. So the only thing we have left yet to test is the logic and the wiring for our dip switches. So we would expect that if we send switch 1 to the on position, we should be displaying the first screen, the first display screen. So let's switch to 1, and there we go. There's our party screen. Let's see what happens if we switch back to 0, and then do number 2, switch number 2, which would give us binary 2. And there we go. There's the yikes face. Okay, so this all appears to be working pretty well. If I just throw switch number 3, I should get the binary 4. So I should get the 4th one. And there we go. There's our throttle decrease indicator. And so you can see that I can also turn on multiple switches. So for example, if I go back and I look at the code again and remind myself which one was number 7. Number 7 was the case corresponding to low throttle. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I should have all 3 switches in the on position. So there's 1 in the on position. So right now we're getting check, but if I put all 3 of them, there we go. Throttle in low position. You can go ahead on your own and check all of these bitmaps to make sure that they correspond. As I said, you can modify your code to get 8, 9, and 10 as well. And check and make sure that your wiring and your logic correspond and are ready for our next session as we work steadily towards being ready to fully activate the autopilot and make our final approach and landing. So good luck. You're doing a great job so far, and I've got all the confidence in the world in your abilities. So until next time, remember, build everything and fly safe.